Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tavern of Tales. Seeing as I have an audience, I guess I'd have to tell you a story, huh? Well, what is a good storyteller without a story? I'm going to tell you a tale about 16s who decided to explore. These children got more than what they bargained for. Well, without further ado, let's get on with it.
During a Halloween night, me and some friends were out having fun, goofing off like teens do when we came across an area in the city of Victorville. This area was called the George Air Force Base. We all heard stories about this place, but why put stock in rumors? Well, that night my friends and I wanted to see for ourselves, and we ended up getting more than what we bargained for. My name is Tristan, and I'm 17. With me was my girlfriend Veronica, my sister Candace, my friend Ryan, my friend George, and Gina, another high school friend. Well, anyway, we all decided to walk towards that vacant lot, and from the moment we stepped foot on the property, it felt ominous and gave me goosebumps. Everyone in Victorville knew the stories. People claimed they heard military radios crackling in empty buildings. Some swore they saw soldiers walking the abandoned streets at night before disappearing into walls. Others talked about the hospital, the place no one stayed in for long. Most people laughed the stories off, until 6 teenagers decided to see it for themselves. Candace tightened her hoodie as the group climbed through a broken section of chain-link fence just after midnight. "This place smells weird," Gina whispered. "It's probably chemicals," Ryan joked nervously. "Or dead ghosts." "Shut up," Candace snapped. Her older brother Tristan walked ahead confidently, flashlight in hand. Veronica stayed close beside him, holding onto his arm. George looked back toward the road uneasily. "You guys sure this is a good idea?" "Nah," Ryan said. "That's why we're here." The abandoned base stretched endlessly in the darkness. Broken barracks, collapsed housing, rusting vehicles half buried in sand. The old hospital stood in the distance like a black silhouette against the moonlight. Candace immediately felt something wrong. The deeper they walked into the base, the quieter the world became. No insects, no coyotes, no wind, just silence. The group entered one of the old barracks buildings first. Graffiti covered the walls. Military paperwork was scattered across the floor as if everyone had vanished in the middle of the day decades earlier. Ryan kicked over an old helmet. "Look at this ancient thing." The second the helmet rolled across the floor, a loud metallic clang echoed from upstairs. Everyone froze. George looked up immediately. "There's someone up there?" Tristan laughed nervously. "It's probably another explorer." Then came footsteps, heavy boots, slow, deliberate, marching. Candace felt her stomach drop. The footsteps sounded wrong. Not modern shoes, combat boots. Old ones. The marching stopped directly above them. Then came a voice over a crackling radio. "Unit 7, report aircraft fire near runway. Repeat, report aircraft fire." The voice sounded distorted, like it came through an ancient speaker underwater. Gina grabbed Candace's arm tightly. "Did you guys hear that?" No one answered, because upstairs, something began walking again, toward the staircase. The flashlight beams shook violently as they backed away. Thump, thump, thump. The boots descended slowly down the wooden stairs, but nobody appeared. Only the sound. Candace's breathing became shallow. Then suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. An Air Force soldier, but not alive. His uniform looked burned black. Flesh hung from parts of his face. One eye was completely gone, leaving only darkness inside the socket. George screamed. The soldier's head twitched unnaturally toward them. Then all the lights died. Pitch black. The radio static exploded around them. "Mayday! Mayday! We're hit! Get out of the aircraft!" Voices screamed over each other. Metal screeched. Explosions echoed through the building. Candace covered her ears as the sound became unbearable. Then silence. The flashlight suddenly flickered back on. The soldier was gone. Nobody split up. Tristan said shakily, but Veronica was staring toward the hallway. There's people outside. Everyone turned. Through the broken windows, dozens of figures stood motionless in the street. Military personnel, pilots, medics, families, all pale, all staring directly at the building. Candace noticed something horrifying. Some of them looked burned. Some looked mangled. One woman held the hand of a little boy whose lower jaw was missing. None of them blinked. Then simultaneously, every head tilted toward the group. The figures began walking forward, slowly, together. Run! The group sprinted out the back of the barracks. Ryan nearly fell as they raced across the cracked pavement toward the hospital. Behind them came hundreds of marching footsteps. Not running, marching, perfectly synchronized. Candace looked back once. Huge mistake. The dead were everywhere now. Soldiers emerged from buildings. Shadowy figures stood on rooftops. Some looked transparent. Others looked horribly real. One pilot walked while holding his own burned arm. Another soldier's face was melted beyond recognition. Yet all of them stared silently at the teens, like they were trespassing somewhere forbidden. They finally reached the hospital entrance and slammed the doors shut behind them. The inside smelled rotten. Wheelchairs sat overturned in hallways. Medical charts littered the floor. An old operating light swung slowly overhead despite there being no wind. Gina started crying. We shouldn't have come here. Then the elevator dinged. Everyone turned slowly. The elevator doors creaked open. A nurse stood inside. Her skin was gray, eyes completely white. Old blood covered the front of her uniform. She smiled unnaturally wide. Visitors, she whispered. The hallway lights suddenly turned red. Then alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. An intercom crackled to life overhead. Base lockdown in effect. All personnel report immediately. The nurse stepped out of the elevator. Then another figure appeared behind her. Then another. Patients. Doctors. Burned soldiers. Dead children. All slowly emerging from the darkness. Candace realized something terrifying. These weren't ghosts replaying memories. They were watching them, aware of them, and angry. The hospital doors behind them slammed shut violently. Chains rattled somewhere deep inside the building. The marching outside stopped completely. Silence filled the hospital. Then every ghost inside smiled at the exact same time, and the lights went out forever. Darkness swallowed the hospital whole. Candace couldn't even see her own hands. The only thing left was the sound. Breathing. Not just theirs. Dozens of breaths echoed through the hallway around them. Wet. Uneven. Like lungs filled with smoke. Gina began sobbing quietly somewhere to Candace's left. Tristan, Veronica whispered shakily. Tell me they're gone. Nobody answered. Then came the sound of a wheelchair moving slowly across the floor. Screech, screech, screech. Closer. Candace fumbled for her phone flashlight with trembling hands. The second the light clicked on, everyone screamed. The nurse was standing inches away from Veronica's face. Her smile stretched impossibly wide now, splitting the skin near her cheeks. Her white eyes locked onto Veronica. You shouldn't be here, the nurse whispered. Tristan shoved Veronica backward and swung a broken metal pipe he found earlier. The pipe passed straight through the nurse like smoke. The ghost suddenly snapped her head toward Tristan. Crack! Her neck twisted completely backward. Then every hallway light exploded at once. Glass rained down from the ceiling. The hospital intercom blasted static so loud everyone dropped to the floor, covering their ears. Out of the static came a voice. Containment breach on lower level. Repeat. Do not let them leave. The hospital changed after that. The hallways no longer looked abandoned. The walls became cleaner. The lights flickered back on overhead. But now the hospital looked alive. Fresh blood streaked the floors. Medical carts rolled by themselves. Phones rang endlessly at nurse stations. Figures moved in distant rooms. Not ghosts this time. People. Doctors rushed through the halls carrying patients covered in burns. Soldiers screamed from inside operating rooms. It was like the teens had somehow stepped backward in time. Ryan stared in disbelief. What the hell is happening? George pointed down the hallway with shaking hands. There. A soldier stood at the far end watching them. His uniform was different from the others. Higher rank. His face looked half burned, but one detail stood out clearly. His dog tags read, Miller. The soldier raised one arm slowly and pointed deeper into the hospital basement. Then he vanished. Nope, Ryan said immediately. Absolutely not. But Candace noticed something horrifying behind them. The exit doors were gone. Just a solid wall now. We don't have a choice, Candace whispered. A distant explosion suddenly shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then came screaming. Not ghostly whispers, real screaming. The sound of terrified people dying echoed somewhere below them. Veronica covered her ears, crying. Tristan grabbed her hand tightly. We stay together no matter what. The group found the basement stairwell door hanging open. The deeper they descended, the colder the air became. Their breath turned visible. The lights flickered violently overhead. Floor B2, floor B3, floor B4. The hospital basement should not have gone down this far. Finally, they reached the bottom. The hallway below looked untouched by time. Military warning signs covered the walls. Authorized personnel only. Biohazard. Restricted access. At the end of the corridor sat a giant steel door slightly cracked open. From inside came faint crying. A little girl crying. Gina froze. That sounds like a child. Candace slowly pushed the steel door open. Inside was a hidden ward. Rows of old hospital beds lined the room. But every bed was occupied. Not by living people. Bodies. Dozens of corpses wearing military uniforms. Some burned. Some missing limbs. Some looked horribly twisted. All perfectly preserved like they died yesterday. Candace nearly threw up. Then she noticed the little girl sitting alone at the far end of the room. She wore an old hospital gown. Long black hair covered most of her face. You came back, the little girl whispered softly. George stepped backward nervously. Candace, something's wrong with her. The girl slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were completely black. Not dark. Completely black. Like empty holes. The soldiers don't like visitors, she whispered. Suddenly, every corpse in the room inhaled sharply at the same time. The sound echoed like hundreds of lungs filling with air after decades of death. Then slowly, every dead soldier sat upright in bed, bones cracking, heads twitching unnaturally, eyes opening. Candace's flashlight revealed something even worse. None of the soldiers had eyes anymore, only hollow sockets leaking black liquid. Then all of them turned toward the teens simultaneously and smiled. The sound of bones cracking filled the hidden ward. One by one, the dead soldiers climbed out of their beds. Boots hit the floor heavily. Thud, thud, thud. Black liquid poured from their empty eye sockets as they slowly surrounded the room. Veronica screamed and backed into Tristan. Ryan grabbed a metal tray from nearby and held it like a weapon even though his hands shook violently. The little girl still sat motionless at the end of the ward, watching, smiling. You woke them up, she whispered. Then every corpse began speaking at once, not yelling, whispering, hundreds of overlapping whispers filling the room. Help us. It burns. Don't let them take us. We never left. Candace felt dizzy listening to the voices. The air smelled like smoke now, burning flesh, jet fuel. Suddenly, one of the soldiers lunged forward. George barely dodged as the corpse slammed into a hospital bed hard enough to bend metal. The thing moved wrong. Too fast. Its joints snapped unnaturally as it crawled across the floor toward him. "Run!" Tristan shouted. The group sprinted out of the hidden ward just as dozens of dead soldiers rushed after them. The hallway lights exploded behind them one after another. Pop. 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 Darkness chased them through the basement corridor. Candace looked back once and instantly regretted it. The soldiers weren't running anymore. They were twitching forward in broken, unnatural movements, dragging their boots while their heads jerked violently side to side, like puppets controlled by invisible strings. And behind them, something much larger emerged from the ward doorway. At first, Candace thought it was smoke. Then it stepped into the flickering light. A massive figure wearing a burned pilot uniform. Its body was charred completely black. One side of its face had melted down to exposed teeth and bone. Its oxygen mask still hung from its neck. But the worst part were the wings. Huge black burned wings stretched from its back like something ripped out of hell itself. Ryan froze. "What the hell is that?" The creature's jaw opened far wider than humanly possible. Then came the sound. A deafening air raid siren blasted from inside its throat. The entire basement shook violently. Every dead soldier immediately stopped moving. Then all of them turned toward the winged pilot and stood at attention like obedient troops. The creature pointed directly at the teens, and the soldiers charged. The group slammed through a nearby fire door and raced up another stairwell. Candace's legs burned from exhaustion. Somewhere below them came hundreds of pounding footsteps climbing after them. Floor B3, floor B2, floor B1. The siren echoed throughout the hospital non-stop now. Red emergency lights flashed overhead. George suddenly stopped at a landing between floors. "There's somebody there." At the top of the stairs stood a soldier wearing a clean Air Force uniform. Unlike the others, he looked normal. Alive, even. He appeared to be in his early 20s. Blood ran down one side of his forehead. "Hurry," he said urgently, "before it finds you." Nobody moved. The soldier looked terrified. "It's using the dead now. You have to get out before sunrise." "Who are you?" Candace asked. "Staff Sergeant Miller." Candace's stomach dropped. The same name from the dog tags earlier. Miller looked back down the stairwell fearfully. "You were never supposed to see this place." A loud metallic screech echoed below them. The walls shook again. Miller looked panicked now. "It knows I'm helping you." "What knows?" Ryan yelled. Miller's expression changed. Pure fear crossed his face. Then the lights flickered off for half a second. When they came back on, Miller was gone. Something else stood at the top of the stairs now. The winged pilot. Its burned wings scraped against the ceiling as it slowly tilted its head downward toward them. Then Candace noticed something horrifying. Inside the melted pilot mask were multiple human faces moving beneath the burned flesh, screaming, trying to get out. The creature took one step downward. The entire stairwell trembled. Then came a deep, distorted voice from inside its mask. "No one leaves the base." The emergency lights suddenly turned completely black, and the screaming began all around them. The darkness erupted with screams. Not just human screams. Jet engines, explosion blasts, metal twisting apart. The entire stairwell shook like an earthquake. Candace dropped to her knees, covering her ears as invisible hands clawed at the walls around them. Something rushed past her in the dark. Then another. Dead soldiers sprinting upward through the stairwell at impossible speed. Their boots slammed against concrete from every direction. Veronica screamed. "Tristan!" Candace turned toward the sound just as the emergency lights flickered back on. Tristan was gone. Only Veronica remained standing there alone, crying hysterically. The metal stairwell door above them slammed shut violently. Boom! Ryan ran upward, trying to force it open. Locked. George looked downward in terror. The winged pilot was slowly climbing the stairs now. Each step made the lights dim. Its wings dragged against the walls, leaving black burn marks behind. And the faces trapped beneath its melted mask were moving faster now, screaming silently. Candace suddenly realized those weren't random faces. They were the faces of people who died on the base. Pilots, doctors, children, military personnel, all trapped inside the thing, like it absorbed them. The creature stopped halfway up the stairs, then pointed one burned finger directly at Veronica. "You belong to us now." Before anyone could react, dozens of black hands burst from the walls and grabbed Veronica. She shrieked as the hands dragged her backward into the concrete itself. Her fingers clawed desperately at Tristan's jacket still lying on the stairs. "Help me!" Candace grabbed Veronica's arm. Ryan grabbed Candace. George grabbed Ryan. For 1 second it looked like they could pull her free. Then the wall opened wider. Hundreds of pale faces pushed outward from inside the concrete. Dead faces, whispering, crying, screaming. Their hands seized Veronica's legs and violently yanked her backward. Candace lost her grip. Veronica disappeared into the wall. Silence. Then from inside the concrete came muffled screaming. Still alive. Still trapped. Tristan's voice suddenly echoed somewhere deep inside the hospital. "Veronica!" "Move!" Ryan shouted. The winged pilot continued climbing slowly toward them. No hurry, like it already knew they couldn't escape. The remaining 4 sprinted upward through another stairwell door that suddenly unlocked on its own. The hospital looked different again upstairs. Now it resembled an active military evacuation center. Doctors rushed through hallways covered in blood. Soldiers carried body bags. Patients screamed from overflowing rooms. Yet nobody acknowledged the teens. It was like walking through ghosts, replaying their final moments. A loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Base evacuation denied. Containment protocol active. Repeat. No one leaves." George looked pale. What happened here? Nobody answered. Because down the hallway stood Tristan. But something was wrong. He stood completely motionless beneath flickering lights. His head lowered. Candace ran toward him. "Tristan!" Slowly he lifted his face. His eyes were completely black now, just like the little girl downstairs. Blood trickled from his nose as he smiled unnaturally wide. "She's still alive," he whispered. Veronica's voice suddenly echoed from nearby rooms. "Help me!" Candace turned toward the sound. Then another Veronica voice echoed from a different hallway. "Candace?" Then another behind them. "Please help." The voices came from everywhere now. Ryan backed away. "That's not her." Tristan's smile widened further than humanly possible. "She wants you to stay." Suddenly, every ghost in the hallway stopped moving simultaneously. Doctors froze mid-step. Patients stopped screaming. Soldiers turned their heads toward the group all at once. The entire hospital became dead silent. Then every ghost pointed down the hallway behind the teens. Slowly. Together. Candace turned around. The winged pilot stood there at the far end of the corridor. But now the hospital itself seemed attached to it. Black veins pulsed outward from beneath its boots across the floors and walls like living infection. The lights dimmed with every step it took. The creature spoke again in its distorted voice. This base was built over something buried. The walls around them began vibrating violently. Deep beneath the hospital, something enormous moved. Candace felt it through the floor. A slow, gigantic thud, like a heartbeat. Thum. Another. Thum. The entire base suddenly lost power. Pitch blackness consumed everything again. Then came the sound from below the hospital. Not human, not ghostly. Something ancient. And waking up. During the rumbling and all the noise, Candace turned and noticed the doors to the hallway wide open, as well as the spirits completely still. Suddenly, Veronica emerged from one of the doors and sprinted to us. Gina looked on the floor and saw Tristan on the floor covering his ears. Veronica sprinted to Tristan and held him in her arms. Veronica screamed, "Tristan, please snap out of it. Don't do this to us." Candace ran to her brother and yelled, "Tristan, you have to fight it." Gina turned and says, "I think when this thing woke up, it started to affect everyone. Look, even the spirits have stopped moving. I think they're afraid." George says, "We need to move." Suddenly, Candace stood up and started walking toward the creature. Ryan grabs her hand and says, "What are you doing?" Candace snaps out of it. The underground chamber trembled so violently it felt like the entire base was being ripped apart beneath them. Concrete cracked overhead. Dust poured from the ceiling. And somewhere deep below the hidden levels, something enormous screamed. Not human. Not even ghostly anymore. Ancient. The black portal beneath the chamber pulsed like a living wound in reality itself, swirling endlessly beneath the shattered floor, while black veins spread across the walls and wrapped around the dead soldiers standing motionless in the darkness. Candace could barely breathe. Veronica clung tightly to Tristan as his body convulsed violently beside her. His eyes flickered black again, then normal, then black once more. Like two different things were fighting for control inside him. "Tristan!" Veronica cried. He dropped to his knees screaming, clawing at his own face. Ryan backed away in terror. "What do we do?" Then suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the chamber. Bang! Everyone froze. At the far end of the room stood Staff Sergeant Miller. But this time he looked different. Not frightened. Determined. The blood running down the side of his face was gone now, and faint sunlight shined through cracks above him like a spotlight piercing the darkness. The dead soldiers surrounding the chamber slowly turned toward him. Miller raised his pistol toward the portal beneath the base. "We end it here," he said quietly. The winged pilot creature shrieked furiously from the shadows above. Its burned wings spread wide enough to blot out the emergency lights. The screaming faces trapped beneath its melted mask twisted and cried endlessly. "You cannot free them," the creature hissed. Miller stepped forward anyway. "You already took enough." The chamber shook again. Thoom! The giant thing beneath the portal moved closer. Candace stared in horror as skeletal hands began reaching upward from inside the darkness below. Hundreds of them. Then Miller turned toward the teens. "There are burial pits beneath this level," he explained quickly. "Mass graves, soldiers, pilots, civilians. Their remains were never put to rest." George's face paled. "The portal?" Miller nodded. "It feeds on trapped souls." Candace suddenly understood. The base itself had become a prison. Not haunted. Trapped. The winged pilot lunged forward with a deafening scream. Dead soldiers charged alongside it. "Move!" Miller shouted. The teens sprinted behind him through collapsing corridors deep beneath the underground levels, while explosions rocked the base around them. Emergency lights flickered violently overhead. The deeper they descended, the hotter the air became. Smoke filled the hallways. Burned dog tags littered the floors. Finally, Miller kicked open a massive steel blast door. Inside stretched an enormous underground burial chamber. Rows and rows of skeletal remains filled the darkness. Military uniforms, burned helmets, dog tags, hundreds of forgotten dead. Candace covered her mouth in horror. Oh my God. Black veins pulsed across every wall. The portal's energy source. Miller handed Ryan a flare gun. "Burn them," he said. Ryan stared at him. "What?" "They deserve peace." Without hesitation, Veronica grabbed a nearby fuel canister abandoned near collapsed equipment. George and Gina helped pour fuel across the burial pits, while Candace struggled to hold Tristan upright as the darkness inside him continued fighting violently. The entire chamber trembled again. Then the winged pilot arrived. Its massive wings smashed through the steel doorway. The creature shrieked loud enough to rupture pipes overhead. Dead soldiers flooded into the room behind it. But something was wrong now. The spirits looked weaker, slower. The sunlight above was growing stronger. Miller suddenly pulled a combat knife from his belt. A black military CQC blade. Then he grabbed Tristan's hand. Tristan winced as black veins crawled beneath his skin. Miller dragged the blade across his own palm first. Blood dripped onto the knife, then across Tristan's hand. Dark, corrupted blood mixed with Miller's. The blade immediately began glowing faintly red. "What are you doing?" Candace shouted. Miller stared directly at the winged pilot. "Giving them a chance." The creature charged. Miller ran straight toward it. The chamber exploded into chaos. Ryan fired the flare gun into the burial pits. F-woom! Flames erupted instantly across the underground chamber. The fire spread rapidly through the remains. And then, the screaming changed. No longer angry, relieved. One by one, glowing spirits began rising from the burning burial pits. Soldiers, doctors, pilots, patients, even children. The little girl appeared among them silently, no longer terrifying. No black eyes, no darkness, just sadness. She looked toward Candace and smiled softly before fading into the light. The winged pilot screamed in absolute terror. Its massive wings began crumbling apart into ash. The screaming faces beneath its mask started disappearing one after another. "No!" the creature roared. Black veins throughout the chamber began retreating violently. The portal beneath the base destabilized. Thoom! Thoom! The giant thing below screamed furiously as its connection weakened. Then Miller appeared behind the creature. In one swift motion, he drove the blood-covered knife directly into the winged pilot's back. The creature let out an inhuman scream. Its body froze. Miller looked toward Tristan. "Finish it." Tristan stared at the thing that had tortured them, taken Veronica, corrupted him, destroyed countless souls. Then rage overtook his fear. He grabbed the knife from the creature's back and drove it straight through the melted pilot mask. The chamber exploded with light. The creature shrieked louder than the collapsing base itself. Its wings dissolved into ash completely. The portal beneath the floor violently imploded inward as the trapped souls escaped into the growing sunrise above. And then, silence. The giant thing beneath the base vanished back into darkness. Gone. The remaining dead soldiers throughout the chamber slowly lowered their heads, then dissolved peacefully into glowing ash. Miller looked around the collapsing chamber one final time. For the first time since they met him, he smiled. They're free now. The base began collapsing completely. "Go!" Miller shouted. The teens sprinted through collapsing hallways as sunlight finally burst through shattered ceilings above. Walls cracked apart behind them. Fire spread rapidly through the underground levels. Ghostly voices echoed one last time through the base. Not screams anymore. Goodbyes. Finally, the group burst out through the hospital entrance into the cold desert sunrise. They collapsed into the sand, breathing heavily while the abandoned base trembled behind them. Candace slowly looked back toward the entrance. Standing silently inside the collapsing doorway were glowing spirits. Doctors, soldiers, patients, children, and Staff Sergeant Miller. The morning sunlight shined through him now. Miller raised one hand toward the teens, a quiet salute. Then slowly, he faded away alongside the others. Gone at last. 7 years later, Tristan was 23 years old. He and Veronica still lived together in a small home outside Victorville. Neither of them ever fully forgot what happened beneath the base. Sometimes Tristan still woke up hearing distant military radios crackling in the dark, but Veronica would always calm him down. Candace and Ryan eventually began dating too after growing closer from surviving the nightmare together. George and Gina became paranormal investigators, traveling across the country researching hauntings and abandoned places together. Unlike before, they no longer chased fear for fun. They searched for answers, for truth, and sometimes, for peace. Despite everything, all six remained close friends. Every year they met together somewhere far away from the desert, and every now and then, they shared pieces of their story publicly. Most people never believed them, but that no longer mattered, because surviving George Air Force Base changed them forever. It taught them fear, loss, sacrifice, and strength. Yet late at night, whenever the desert winds howled hard enough across Victorville, sometimes Tristan still caught himself staring toward the distant ruins of the abandoned base beneath the moonlight. And deep down, a small part of him always wondered if evil like that could ever truly die, or if somewhere deep beneath the desert, something was still waiting.
Now, how was that? Was it what you expected? Now, I couldn't tell you if the story is true or not, but I can say I personally have no intention in exploring the supernatural, so I'll leave that to your imagination. If you liked the story, then catch me again whenever you'd like to hear me spin another yard. I'll be here drinking as always. Until next time, from the Tavern of Tales.